rang, signaling the end of another period. Miss Penelope Penny Ainsworth smiled as her students filed out of her English classroom. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the posters of classic novels that adorned the walls. Penny loved her job, shaping young minds, introducing them to the power of language and literature. It was a passion that burned brightly within her. Penny had been teaching at Northwood High for 7 years. Everyone knew her story. Once a promising young equestrian, a fall from a horse jumping competition at 16 had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her dreams of Olympic gold shattered in an instant. The accident had been devastating. The initial months were a blur of hospitals, surgeries, and grueling physical therapy. But Penny was a fighter. She refused to let the accident define her. She rediscovered her love for literature, devoured books, and eventually decided to pursue a degree in English education. Now at 35, Penny was a beloved figure at Northwood High. Her students admired her wit, her intelligence, and her unwavering optimism. She navigated the hallways in her motorized wheelchair with grace and efficiency. A bright scarf often draped around her neck, a splash of color against her tweed jackets. Penny had a supportive family who loved her dearly, but she also cherished her independence and preferred her own company. The years following the accident had also seen a string of disappointing relationships. The ill treatment she experienced, the pity, the awkwardness, the subtle condescension had left her deeply mistrustful of romantic overtures. She preferred the quiet solitude of her apartment, surrounded by books and the comforting presence of her ginger cat, Marmalade. One afternoon, while grading papers in the teacher's lounge, Penny overheard a conversation between two colleagues. "Did you hear about the new history teacher?" one asked. "Mr. Harrison? Yeah, seems nice enough," the other replied. He's also single, the first teacher added with a wink. Penny chuckled to herself. The teachers at Northwood High were always trying to play matchmaker. She appreciated the concern, but she'd learned to be content with her own company. Past experiences had taught her that romantic relationships often brought more heartache than happiness. A few days later, Penny found herself in the school library, searching for a specific edition of Pride and Prejudice for her senior class. As she reached for a copy on a high shelf, she felt a presence beside her. Need a hand? Penny turned to see a tall, kind-faced man with warm eyes and a slightly crooked smile. "Mr. Harrison, I presume," she said, a smile playing on her lips. "Guilty," he replied. "And you must be Miss Ainsworth. I've heard wonderful things." He reached up and retrieved the book for her. "So," he said, handing it to her, "tell me, Miss Ainsworth, what's so special about this particular edition of Pride and Prejudice?" And just like that, a conversation began. They talked about literature, about teaching, about their lives. Penny found herself drawn to his easygoing manner and his genuine interest in what she had to say. He didn't seem fazed by her wheelchair, didn't treat her any differently. He just saw her. There was a certain warmth, a lack of pretense that she hadn't encountered before. Over the next few weeks, Penny and Mr. Harrison, whose first name was David, found excuses to spend time together. They shared lunch in the cafeteria, debated historical inaccuracies in movies, and even collaborated on a cross-curricular project. One evening, David asked Penny if she'd like to grab dinner after school. She hesitated a moment, her past experiences whispering warnings in her ear. But something about David felt different. He was genuine, kind, and seemed genuinely interested in her, not in overcoming her disability. She said yes. The evening was magical. They talked and laughed for hours, discovering shared passions and dreams. David told her about his love for history, and his desire to travel the world. Penny shared her story, her triumphs and her struggles, and David listened with genuine empathy. She even found herself sharing the hurt she had felt from previous relationships. He listened intently, his brow furrowed with concern. As the evening drew to a close, David walked Penny back to her car. He paused, looking into her eyes. "Penny," he said softly, "I've really enjoyed getting to know you." Penny's heart fluttered. "I've enjoyed getting to know you too, David." He leaned in and gently kissed her. It was a simple kiss, but it was filled with warmth and possibility. And for the first time in a long time, Penny felt a flicker of hope. David seemed different. He seemed to truly see her, the woman behind the wheelchair, the woman who had so much to offer. Maybe, just maybe, Penny thought, she was ready to open her heart again. Maybe after all these years, she had found someone who saw her, truly saw her, for the remarkable woman she was. As the weeks passed, Penny and David found themselves drawn closer and closer. They discovered a shared love for old movies, a similar quirky sense of humor, and a mutual respect for each other's intellect. Dinners turned into long strolls in the park, and casual conversations blossomed into deep, intimate discussions. Despite the growing intensity of their connection, Penny found herself hesitant to make their relationship public. "Let's keep it between us for now," she suggested one afternoon as they lingered in the parking lot after school. David looked at her, a hint of confusion in his eyes. "Is everything okay, Penny? I thought things were going really well." "They are," Penny assured him, gently taking his hand. "It's just I've had bad experiences in the past. People can be judgmental. I just want to be sure before we open ourselves up to everyone's opinions." David squeezed her hand reassuringly. I understand. I'm happy to go at your pace. So they kept their relationship a secret. Stolen moments in empty classrooms, hushed phone calls in the evening, and weekend adventures carefully disguised as solo outings. It added a certain thrill to their burgeoning romance, a sense of intimacy and shared conspiracy. One sunny Saturday, Penny decided to show David a part of her life she rarely shared with anyone. Her garden. I wanted to show you something, she said, a hint of mystery in her voice. But you have to promise not to laugh. David raised an eyebrow. Laugh? At what? Penny just smiled enigmatically. When they arrived at Penny's house, a cozy bungalow filled with books and the comforting scent of chamomile tea, she led him out to the backyard. It wasn't a typical garden, filled with roses and lilies. Instead, it was shaded, almost mystical space, dominated by a collection of logs, decaying wood, and damp earth. And everywhere in every nook and cranny grew mushrooms. Welcome to my fungal kingdom, Penny announced with a flourish. David stared in amazement. Mushrooms? You grow mushrooms? I'm fascinated by them, Penny explained, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. They're so often overlooked, seen as something ugly or poisonous, but they're incredibly diverse, incredibly important to the ecosystem, and some of them are incredibly beautiful. She pointed to a cluster of delicate, translucent mushrooms growing on a fallen log. These are ghost fungi. They glow in the dark. David, a history teacher, more accustomed to battlefields and political intrigue, struggled to grasp her passion. They're quirky, he said, searching for the right word. Penny laughed. Quirky is an understatement, but that's what I love about them. They're unexpected, unconventional, and utterly unique. She spent the next hour showing him her collection, explaining the different species, their properties, and their role in the natural world. David listened patiently, trying to understand her fascination. He didn't quite get it, but he recognized the passion in her voice and the joy in her eyes. He decided that, yes, it was definitely quirky, but it was also undeniably Penny. As they sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the sunlight filter through the trees, David took Penny's hand. I may not understand your obsession with mushrooms, he said, but I understand you, and that's what matters. Penny smiled, her heart swelling with affection. Maybe, just maybe, this secret, unconventional relationship could actually work. The secret dates continued, filled with stolen kisses and whispered promises. Penny and David started planning small trips, escaping the confines of Northwood High and venturing out into the world. Just the two of them. They explored antique shops in quaint little towns, hiked scenic trails, David pushing Penny's wheelchair whenever the terrain allowed, and shared laughter over picnic lunches by the lake. Each adventure deepened by their connection, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences and tender moments. One weekend, they rented a secluded cabin in the mountains. The air was crisp and clean, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. They spent the day hiking, reading by the fireplace, and simply enjoying each other's company. As the evening approached, a different kind of anticipation filled the air. After dinner, they sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, gazing at the stars. David turned to Penny, his eyes filled with a mixture of tenderness and nervousness. Penny, he began, his voice soft. Penny reached out and gently placed her fingers on his lips. I know, David, she whispered. I feel it too. They went inside, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. David moved slowly, carefully, wanting to ensure Penny felt comfortable and safe. He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "You're beautiful, Penny," he said, his voice thick with emotion, inside and out. He kissed her, a slow, lingering kiss that spoke of longing and affection. Penny responded, her own desires rising to the surface. They moved to the bedroom where the moonlight streamed through the window. David helped Penny undress, his touch gentle and reverent. He took his time, exploring her body with his hands and lips, learning what brought her pleasure. At first, there was a sense of awkwardness, of uncertainty. It had been a long time for Penny, and she was self-conscious about her body, about the limitations her paralysis imposed. But David was patient, reassuring her with his words and his touch. He whispered words of encouragement, of admiration, reminding her of her beauty and her strength. As they navigated the physical challenges, a moment of unexpected humor broke the tension. Penny attempting a new position accidentally knocked over a bedside lamp, sending it crashing to the floor. They both burst out laughing, the sound echoing through the cabin. The laughter dissolved the awkwardness, replaced by a sense of lightness and freedom. They realized that this wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, about exploring each other with honesty and vulnerability. They rediscovered each other and began again, and passion ignited. They made love slowly and with purpose. David's careful and gentle exploration made her feel safe and deeply loved. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, the fire crackling softly in the background. Penny nestled her head against David's chest, feeling a sense of contentment she hadn't experienced in years. That was, she began, searching for the right word. "Amazing," David finished, smiling down at her. "Perfect, just like you. They lay in each other's arms and watched the fire grow dim. The afterglow of their weekend in the mountains lingered, deepening the connection between Penny and David. They returned to Northwood High with a renewed sense of intimacy and commitment. However, keeping their relationship a secret became increasingly difficult. Subtle glances, shared smiles, and the occasional lingering touch didn't go unnoticed. The rumor mill began to churn. It started with knowing looks from a few colleagues, followed by hushed whispers in the hallways. Soon, it seemed like everyone at Northwood High suspected that Penny and David were more than just friends. But unlike the well-meaning, if sometimes misguided, attempts to set Penny up in the past, this time the reactions were different. The female staff, in particular, seemed off. Their initial enthusiasm had morphed into something colder, more calculating. The comments weren't direct, never outright accusations or criticisms. Instead, they were veiled in passive-aggressive politeness, delivered with practiced smiles and a hint of condescension. "Oh, Penny, you look radiant lately," Mrs. Davies from the math department would say, her eyes flickering towards David as he passed in the hallway. "It's so wonderful to see you happy." Or during a staff meeting, Miss Thompson, the guidance counselor, might comment, "David is such a catch, isn't he? So dedicated, so handsome. He'll make someone a very lucky wife someday." The unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. How on earth did Penny land him? Even some of the parents, who had always been friendly and supportive, started acting strangely. During parent-teacher conferences, they'd offer saccharine comments laced with subtle jabs. "Penny, you're such an inspiration," one mother said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "It's so heartwarming to see David being so supportive." The underlying message was clear. David was settling. There must be something wrong with him if he was with Penny. It had to be pity a sense of obligation, or perhaps something even more sinister. They couldn't fathom that he might genuinely be attracted to her, that he might actually love her. Penny heard whispers, saw the glances, and felt the subtle barbs. At first she tried to ignore them, to brush them off as jealousy or small-mindedness. But the constant stream of negativity began to chip away at her confidence, to reawaken old insecurities. She started to question herself. Was she good enough for David? Was she holding him back? Was she, as some of the comments implied, a charity case? One evening, as she and David were enjoying a quiet dinner at her house, Penny couldn't hold it in any longer. "They're talking, David," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "The women at school, they're saying things." David frowned, concern etched on his face. "What kind of things?" Penny hesitated, then repeated some of the comments she had overheard. The passive-aggressive compliments, the subtle jabs. David's expression hardened. "That's ridiculous," he said, his voice laced with anger. "They're just jealous. They can't understand why someone like me would be with someone like you." "But maybe they're right," Penny said softly, her eyes filled with doubt. "Maybe I'm not good enough for you." David reached across the table and took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Don't ever say that, Penny," he said, his voice filled with passion. "You are more than enough. You're smart, funny, beautiful, and kind. You're everything I've ever wanted in a partner. Don't let their petty jealousy poison what we have." But the damage was done. The seeds of doubt had been planted. David's words were a balm to Penny's wounded spirit. He reaffirmed his love and admiration, bolstering her confidence and helping her to push aside the negativity swirling around them. However, one phrase lingered in her mind. Why someone like me would be with someone like you. It was meant as a compliment, a testament to her wonderful qualities, but it also inadvertently highlighted the perceived disparity between them, the unspoken question of why a seemingly normal man would choose to be with a woman in a wheelchair. She tried to dismiss it, chalking it up to a clumsy choice of words. But the seed of doubt remained, buried deep within her subconscious. A few weeks later, David announced that his family was having a large gathering to celebrate his grandmother's 80th birthday. "I want you to come, Penny," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. "I want you to meet my family. They're going to love you." Penny's heart sank. The thought of meeting his entire family, of being subjected to their scrutiny and judgment, filled her with dread. "David, I don't know," she said, her voice hesitant. "It feels a little too soon. We haven't even been dating that long." David's face fell. "But I really want you to be there," he pleaded. "It would mean so much to me. I want to show you off, to show everyone how lucky I am to be with you." Penny hesitated. She didn't want to disappoint him, to make him think she wasn't serious about their relationship. She feared that saying no would push him away, would confirm his own doubts about their compatibility. So she reluctantly agreed. "Okay, David," she said, forcing a smile. "I'll go." The day of the gathering arrived, and Penny was a nervous wreck. She spent hours getting ready, carefully selecting an outfit that was both stylish and comfortable. As they drove to David's family's house, her stomach churned with anxiety. When they arrived, David rolled her inside, then immediately took her by the hand, his enthusiasm radiating from him. "Everyone, this is Penny," he announced, his voice booming. "Penny, this is my entire crazy family." David proceeded to introduce Penny to everyone, rattling off names and relationships at a dizzying pace. aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. It was a whirlwind of faces and polite greetings. David was incredibly proud, beaming as he showed Penny off to his family. He made sure everyone knew how smart, how funny, how accomplished she was. Penny's an English teacher, he'd say. She's amazing with her students, and she has the most incredible garden, filled with the most fascinating mushrooms you've ever seen. While Penny appreciated David's enthusiasm, she also felt increasingly uncomfortable. It felt like he was showcasing her, parading her around as if she were some kind of prize. The constant attention was overwhelming, and she couldn't shake the feeling that he was emphasizing her accomplishments to compensate for her disability. It was as if he was trying to prove to his family, and perhaps to himself, that she was worthy of him. She noticed the subtle glances, the polite but strained smiles, the veiled curiosity in their eyes. She could almost hear their thoughts. She's very impressive, but a wheelchair. As the day wore on, Penny's unease grew. She felt like she was being scrutinized, analyzed, and judged. David's pride, which had initially seemed so endearing, now felt performative, almost patronizing. It was as if he was trying to prove something, not just to his family, but to the world. Was he really proud to be with her? Or was he just proud of the kind of person he thought he was for being with someone like her? As they left the gathering, David's family showered them with sweet goodbyes, their voices laced with genuine warmth and veiled curiosity. "It was so lovely to meet you, Penny," David's mother gushed, giving her a hug. "You're welcome back anytime." Penny managed a polite smile, but underneath the surface, she still felt a lingering sense of unease. The scrutiny, the subtle judgments, and David's performative pride had left her emotionally drained. However, David was elated. He couldn't stop talking about how much his family had loved Penny, how impressed they were by her intelligence and her wit. "They were all so taken with you, Penny," he said, his voice filled with joy. "My grandmother even said you were the best girlfriend I've ever had." His enthusiasm was infectious, and despite her reservations, Penny found herself caught up in his excitement. She couldn't deny that a part of her was flattered by the positive reception, by the validation of David's family. His giddiness rubbed off on her, and she even found herself feeling slightly giddy. They sang along to the radio on the drive back, sharing jokes and laughter. For a moment, the doubts and insecurities faded away, replaced by a sense of contentment and hope. Maybe she was overthinking things. Maybe David's pride was genuine, a reflection of his deep affection for her. When they arrived back at Penny's house, David carried her over the threshold, a playful gesture that made her heart flutter. He kissed her deeply, his passion igniting a fire within her. They spent the rest of the evening wrapped in each other's arms, lost in a world of intimacy and affection. As Penny drifted off to sleep, she clung to the warmth of David's embrace, trying to push aside the nagging doubts that still lingered in the back of her mind. She wanted to believe that their love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle, any prejudice, any insecurity. However, the memory of David's words, "Why someone like me would be with someone like you," continued to haunt her dreams, a subtle reminder of the perceived imbalance in their relationship. The weeks following the family gathering were a whirlwind of activity. Penny found herself increasingly drawn to David, captivated by his charm and his unwavering affection. He was unlike any man she had dated before. While she had briefly entertained relationships in the past, she always found a reason to end them quickly, a subconscious defense mechanism against potential heartbreak. David, however, was different. His looks, his kindness, and his genuine interest in her had broken through her defenses, creating a connection she couldn't deny. But something unexpected started happening. Penny noticed a shift in the way other men treated her when she was with David. Men she had known for years, who had previously paid her little attention, suddenly became more flirtatious, more interested. They would hold her gaze a little longer, offer compliments that were a little too suggestive, and linger in her personal space. At first, Penny was confused. Then, she started to feel a strange sense of validation. It was as if David's presence, his attractiveness, had somehow made her more desirable in the eyes of other men. It was as if dating someone better looking than themselves had suddenly made her worthy of their attention. One afternoon, Penny confided in her close friend, Sarah, about the unexpected attention she was receiving. Sarah listened patiently, then chuckled. "Oh, honey," she said, "that's just how it is. Some men are weak. They're only interested in what they can't have, or what's been validated by someone else. David's a catch, so suddenly you're a catch too." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Don't take it too seriously, Penny. Those types of men aren't worth your time. They're more interested in the trophy than the person." Penny took Sarah's words to heart. She knew that the attention was superficial, a reflection of the other men's insecurities, rather than a genuine interest in her. But she couldn't deny that she enjoyed it, at least a little. It was a boost to her ego, a validation of her desirability, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She found herself subtly playing into it, dressing a bit more provocatively, flirting a little more outrageously. It was a game, a harmless way to test her own power and attractiveness. She knew she loved David, but The attention from other men made her feel alive, desirable, and independent. Of course, this new dynamic didn't go unnoticed by David. He started to sense a change in Penny, a newfound confidence and a subtle independence. He saw the way other men looked at her, the way she flirted back, and a flicker of insecurity sparked within him. Despite the increased attention from other men, Penny remained devoted to David. She enjoyed the flirting, the compliments, and the boost to her ego, but she never crossed the line. She knew that David was the only one she truly loved, the one who saw her for who she was, wheelchair and all. David, however, struggled with his insecurities. He couldn't shake the feeling that Penny was slipping away, that her newfound confidence was somehow threatening their relationship. He would often seek reassurance, peppering her with questions about her feelings and her commitment. "Do you still love me, Penny?" he'd ask, his voice laced with anxiety. "Am I still enough for you?" Penny would laugh and reassure him, showering him with affection and reminding him of all the reasons why she loved him. "Of course I still love you, silly," she'd say, kissing him deeply. "You're the best thing that has ever happened to me. Don't you ever doubt that." She found his insecurities endearing, even a little cute. It was a sign that he cared deeply, that he was afraid of losing her. But she also knew that his constant need for reassurance could become tiresome, a burden on their relationship. One evening, as they were relaxing at Penny's house, she mentioned that she had been working on something with her mushrooms before she met David. Something she found difficult to explain. "It's hard to put into words," she said. "It's a research project of sorts." David, who had never quite understood Penny's fascination with fungi, simply nodded politely. He had noticed that she spent less time in her garden when she was happy and content. But when she was upset or stressed, especially when she was upset with him. She would throw herself into tinkering with her mushrooms, as if seeking solace in their silent, mysterious world. He brushed it off as a quirky hobby, a harmless way for her to unwind. He didn't realize that it was more than that it was a passion that ran deep within her soul, a connection to something ancient and powerful. As their relationship progressed, David became increasingly insistent about meeting Penny's family. He seemed slightly spooked by her newfound confidence, and felt that meeting her family would somehow solidify their commitment, would reassure him that she was still invested in their relationship. "When am I going to meet your family, Penny?" he asked, his voice laced with expectation. "I want them to know how serious I am about you." Penny, however, remained hesitant. She loved her family, but they could be intense. She wasn't ready to subject David to their scrutiny, to the inevitable comparisons and judgments. She also wanted to protect her family from any potential heartbreak. "When I'm ready, David," she'd say respectfully but firmly. "I'll let you know. It's not that I don't want you to meet them. It's just that the time isn't right yet." Her confident refusal surprised David. He had expected her to cave, to give in to his demands. Her resistance only fueled his insecurities, making him wonder what she was hiding, what she was afraid of. As time went on, David and Penny continued their usual activities, but a subtle shift began to occur. David, who had initially been so eager to assist Penny, started to show signs of annoyance at having to do certain things for her. It wasn't that Penny was demanding or helpless. She was fiercely independent and capable of doing most things for herself. But there were certain tasks that were simply easier or more convenient with David's help, like moving her around the house or fetching items that were out of reach. Initially, David had offered these gestures willingly, even enthusiastically, but now he seemed to resent them, as if they were a burden, a constant reminder of Penny's limitations. He would sigh audibly as he reached for a book on a high shelf, or grumble under his breath as he helped her navigate a crowded room. The walks where David pushed Penny's wheelchair became less frequent. He would offer excuses, citing his busy schedule or the unpredictable weather. Penny noticed the change, but she tried to brush it off, attributing it to stress or fatigue. However, David's resentment wasn't limited to physical tasks. He also seemed increasingly annoyed by Penny's newfound confidence and inner glow. He would pout and sulk when she held the center of conversational topics, when she laughed and joked with their friends, when she commanded attention with her wit and her charm. It was as if he couldn't stand the fact that she was thriving, that she was no longer the insecure, vulnerable woman he had initially been drawn to. He seemed to want her to be grateful, dependent, and always looking to him for validation. Penny, however, refused to dim her light. She had worked too hard to cultivate her confidence, to embrace her inner strength. She wasn't going to apologize for being happy, for being successful, for being loved. She noticed David's annoyance, his subtle jabs, and his passive-aggressive behavior. She tried to talk to him about it, to address the underlying insecurities that were driving his actions. But he would dismiss her concerns, accusing her of being overly sensitive or of imagining things. The distance between them grew, fueled by David's resentment and Penny's refusal to compromise her own happiness. The once unbreakable bond began to fray, threatened by the weight of unspoken resentments and unmet expectations. The subtle shifts in David's behavior escalated, taking a darker and more disturbing turn. His touches, once gentle and affectionate, became harsher and more rigid, bordering on violent. He would grip her arm too tightly, pull her wheelchair too abruptly, or squeeze her hand until it ached. He would mask these moments of aggression with exaggerated displays of affection, showering her with compliments and gifts, pandering to her every whim. But the mask was slipping, revealing the self-entitled bully that lurked beneath the surface. David, it turned out, thrived on the perception of being a sweet, caring man. He loved the praise, the admiration, and the validation he received for dating a woman in a wheelchair. It boosted his ego, reinforced his belief that he was a good person, a saint even. But behind closed doors, he was a different person entirely. He was controlling, manipulative, and prone to fits of rage. He resented Benny's independence, her confidence, and her refusal to conform to his expectations. One evening, as Penny was preparing dinner, she received a phone call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice, thick with emotion, spoke on the other end. "Are you Penny Ainsworth?" "Yes," Penny replied, her heart pounding in her chest. "Who is this?" "It doesn't matter," the woman said urgently. "I'm calling to warn you. You need to be careful. You don't know who David Harrison really is." "What do you mean?" Penny asked, her voice trembling. "He's not who he seems," the woman said. "He's a monster. Get away from him before it's too late." The woman hung up before Penny could ask any more questions. Shaken and confused, Penny tried to dismiss the call as a prank or a misunderstanding. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few days, Penny received more calls and text messages, all from different numbers, all echoing the same chilling warning. Women from far away, women she had never met, were reaching out to tell her to be careful, to get away from David. Driven by fear and curiosity, Penny started investigating. She searched online, poring over news articles and social media posts. Slowly, a horrifying pattern began to emerge. The women who were warning her had all dated David in the past. They were all disabled in some way. Some were missing a finger, a disfigured limb, skin difficulties. Others had limited mobility, and one was completely blind. And all of them had been hurt, either physically or emotionally, by David.